Interesting here at Salute that we had some hassle getting parked initially, that we were stuck with a road closure around the back, and our old parking site that I used to use, which is just in front of the main front entrance to Excel, had been demolished and converted into a block of flats going up, I think, some apartments. I like these Normandy buildings here. Great to see a lot more of this MDF stuff coming out with printed graphics on. So this is Micro Art Studio, and all of their ranges of Infinity terrain now look like they're doing them with the printed on art on the outside. Always a favourite, the terrain is excellent on the Crooked Dice Games site. You can see here that that's their classic fantasy game. I've done a couple of videos on playing that, and they've got it running here on a couple of smaller board layouts, so like a nice town view there. Another Crooked Dice Games board layout here. This one is for their sort of pulp setting, and there's like these fishmen on here, so kind of a Cthulhu Innsmouth kind of scene, I think. Great little layout. Really like the different levels they built in there with the kind of wooden dock and the rundown old dockyard locations. Just looks like it's got some nice elevation there to play on. This was a little company doing 3D printing, and that fantastic ship there, expensive at 86 quid, but you can see here they're kind of like mini Space Marines and mini Gene Stealers. Plus this is a 6mm shantytown, which is fantastic. Finger in the frame there for scale. And yeah, Rock is the name of the company, ROK, and they've got a website. They're doing a lot of this. It's bigger than Epic Scale. I think it's like 10mm. Listening to them talking, that they're kind of trying different sizes and scales to get it to sit, but the 10mm seems to be the one they're going for. Then they've got slightly larger scales at the back here, but it's all sort of derivative of the classic 40k factions. So one of my friends I was with picked up a couple of their units here. I think a Kroot one and Sisters of Battle in this scale. They 3D print it and then they send them out in a kind of little army packs. They also do War Master at the same time as the kind of epic sci-fi side. This is the Dungeon and Lasers gear, and they've got some really good stuff now. I mean, look at that terrain there. That's a one-box set of terrain. Comes with all the sort of sci-fi pieces. And this is the Dwarven dungeon that they do. Again, I really like the floors in there. Unfortunately, I'm fully invested in the Dwarven Forge stuff, so this, although this looks really nice, I already have stacks and stacks of Dwarven Forge, so it wouldn't be completely compatible. Probably would work okay, but it also, you have to paint it all this stuff comes unpainted. But they were doing dragons, griffins there, all sorts of different models now from this Dungeon and Lasers company, so they seem to be sort of establishing themselves in the market really well and expanding the range. I bought the Silver Bayonet game while I was there, so I've got a little show of that at the end, a flash of the book that I bought. So I had a quick look at watching this. I've got some nice models from North Star. The layout here is obviously a frosty feel to it, and the game is skirmish gothic horror, basically, with a nice set of rules supporting it for the various different creatures and monsters and things you've got in there. But you choose from different Napoleonic factions that you could use in it. Although you don't have to have specific models, it's not that tight restricted, you must have these particular regiments in certain colours. It's much more looser than that. This is the Twilight stand, and they had some great new models there again, and a couple of games going on. Really nice dynamic terrain they have in terms of having elevation and some interesting plants and trees that have that theme that works on their Twilight setting with their kind of creatures. lizard type creatures, I think, really, than most of the factions. I'm afraid I don't know. I've got lots of their models, but I can't remember the names of their various factions. Got some nice dice trays and various bits of paraphernalia to support the game. And here's some of the, I think there's some of their older terrain that they've got on show here for demo games. So they were using a lot of space up. And one of my favourite terrain layouts of theirs is this circular one. I really like having that circle layout. You never really see it because, of course, from a game table space perspective, it feels like you're losing your corners. But why not go for a circular layout when it works like this for me? I think you don't need any more space. That's enough, and also looks kind of stylish. So these are a set of Moonstone miniatures on their stand. I got that one there in the middle with the sort of tree fey creature, and in a set. And they do a lot of fairies basically, so they're kind of famous for that. They have a game system for Moonstone too. I wanted that troll at the back left, but they didn't have that. It sold out of it during the day. But yeah, I did get one set of models from these guys, and they're really nice. Really characterful models, really. I mean, I think they're not going to be to everyone's taste because they're kind of specific to their setting, but you can certainly get some good stuff in there that could be used in any fantasy games that you wanted, especially if you're after those sort of fairy fae style of ones. And fairy tale as well, I suppose, is what they have a sort of general theme of. So what I'm going to do now is take you through my haul. I bought quite a few books, which does eat into the budget somewhat because you end up buying the books and then the accessories and the cards and everything for that particular game system. Before you know it, your budget's run out for miniatures. So I didn't get a huge amount of models on the day, but I got bits and pieces from across the show, which I was interested in. So without further ado, dive into it. Just try and get my layout sorted here. That's not very in focus, is it? So here we have it. Right, actually I'm a bit too zoomed in now. I'll zoom out initially, show you the books, get that into focus. So let's see if that's in reasonable focus there. Sharp's Practice. So this is from Two Fat Lardies. It's been out for quite a few years, but I decided to pick it up this time because I've been intrigued in the silver bayonet, Napoleonic, and I've got a friend who's keen on the period, so I've invested, and I got this, and I got the cards that go with it, which are sort of activation cards, and some tokens. So it soon adds up when you buy all the various things that come with it. These allow you to activate and do certain things within the round. You can either use kind of disc-like tokens that they provide that you need to paint, or the card deck. And so I went with a card deck because it's nice and easy. Just show you those inside. They just have the different flags and leaders and different factions in there. So when you're playing, after every activation you draw one of these out, and depending on the color it's one of the factions that are playing, and you've got different things you can do because multiple cards could come out before you grab them and take an action when one of your leader cards comes out, and you have the leader cards in there too. Yeah, so nice card based activation system, and a smaller scale Napoleonic setting, well liked rules, and nice layout in their quality book as well, nice thick pages and a good size. And they have all of the various army lists in the back for a reasonably small scale, and you could say skirmish Napoleonic really, so you can have some fun around the kind of Sharp TV series or Sharp book that that's based on in a way. So Sharp's Practice. Other book, Silver Bayonet. So D10 attack process in here, I think there is. You roll 2d10s to hit your target. And this setting is again European Napoleonic, but with that kind of vampire gothic horror. So you've got werewolves, you've got trolls, you've got hobgoblins, and then you've got the various factions in there too. Interestingly enough, the way they do it is you play with against your opponent. You might have French Napoleonic characters, and they'll have a small warband of British, so there'd be a little bit of a war going on. But then you have another faction, which is the monsters on the table that are activating as well, which could then tussle with either of the sides. So interestingly done. It's got, I mean, you could say it's a modern Mordheim. It's got a method of going up in levels and doing a sort of campaign as you improve your characters, scenarios in there. And the 2d10 attack process is interesting because you roll 2 different coloured dice on your 2d10s. I just realised I didn't have my picture in pictures. So yeah, you roll 2d10, and then if you hit the target number, including the bonus that you've got for your attack bonus, whether it's shooting or melee, you hit the target defense number, and you don't then roll damage dice again. You just look at the 2 coloured d10s you've got, and the one that is maybe the red dice, if you've picked that, and I think that's what they say as a standard, is actually then the damage. But if you haven't hit, obviously you're not going to do any damage. But if you do have a high enough number to hit, you look at the red dice and you say, that's the amount of damage I've done as well. So a nice fast double D10 attack process. Much prefer it to the sort of D20 of the Frostgrave world, which I find really swingy. I know it's based on D&D, and I was trying to sort of hark back to that feel with the D20 rolling. But much prefer having a bell curve with the 2d10 rolled, plus that speedy process of picking 1 dice for the damage. So yeah, that's a nice rule set. Continuing on the rule set themes, I got the Two Fat Lardies Water Cowboy based on Water Tanker. This has an interesting activation process, which I watched some videos on YouTube before running in to buy it. But basically, you might have 8 models aside. When you start activating your force, you roll 6d6. Each one of the d6 can result in a different action type. So if you roll any 1s, every 1 in that set of 6d6 you roll is a move. Any 2 is a spot. So you may roll 3 1s and a 4 or 5 for a shoot or reroll. But basically, you're looking for 4 or 5 on your dice to be able to get those shots in. I like that activation process. I understand that's what they use in Water Tanker as well. So you've kind of got spotting that you would do with a 2. So you try and have a look around and say, I've spotted that other guy behind the barrels outside of the saloon, and then once you've spotted them, you might then use one of your shoot dice to hit them, or you might need to move up by using a move dice. So it kind of restricts your actions depending on what you roll each round. So I've not read enough or played it yet to give you any more detail, but just those mechanisms, I like the idea of. It looks good. Next thing is Dracula. So this is 7TV, and I've done some videos on their fantasy rules, so you should check those out if you're interested in 7TV's rule sets. They did them for all sorts of different periods, but at their heart they've got a standard set of core rules. But this is the Dracula ones that they've themed on Dracula. So everything in here gives you that sort of focus on how the rules might apply in this Dracula setting. Although, having said that, everything else about it is pretty much the standard rules. And what they're doing now, as I understand it, they have a Kickstarter coming out soon where they have a brand new core rule book which applies to all their periods: pulp, apocalyptic, fantasy, and even this Dracula one. And then they're going to release individual setting books which are a bit smaller scale. With a whole new pulp version or a whole new fantasy version, they'll have a core book that applies across the whole set. With these mini campaign settings released for it. So that's going to be interesting. Quite expensive, this one. £30 for quite a small book. But the collector in me, knowing I really like 7TV production, the artwork in there is brilliant, really nice book as well. So pick that one up. definitely ate into the budget, and so did their miniatures, which I can move on to now. So I bought some Crooked Dice miniatures at the same time. I got their Vampire Spawn, I got their Ape Men, and I got some of their Wolves. I haven't got them all here, but their Wolf Pack as well, for that vampire setting, or for any of their games. Plus I can use these in the Silver Bayonet Napoleonic Gothic horror as well, so I can zoom right into these to get you a better view on things. Try and get that focus in. Yeah, so those treasure piles are from Bad Squiddo Games. I got treasure piles from them, and they're really nicely made, actually. They look like they may have been 3D designed and then printed, because they're so clean and such great looking little treasure piles to use in a D&D or Pathfinder game. And they also did a set of mimics, and this was my favourite thing of the show, I think, which was a mimic in a wicker basket. Probably mostly because I've got strange memories of wicker baskets when I was younger. We had one for our clothes washing that was always in the house, so seeing a wicker basket version of a mimic was fun, and had to snap it up. Plus they did a whole set of mimics in a little pack, so you get basically the usual traditional bookcase type ones and barrel type mimics, but they also got individual book mimics and lots of little detailed ones in that Bad Squiddo Games set too. And from them I also got these, which are a set of scarecrows, which I thought they'd be used in any setting. Great bit of terrain, mount them on a base, and they're non-period specific, aren't they? Especially these ones here, which don't really have any clothing on. You could use them in any setting at all. Yeah, moving that stuff out of the way, down to the Crooked Dice stuff again that I was saying. So these are the Vampire Spawn. Really dynamic poses, really nice looking miniatures. I can zoom in a little bit on that, and you can see you can even see the little vampire teeth there as well. And these are their sort of human ape models too. Great little poses and great jaws there with the teeth and the spiky hair. Would have liked to get 2 sets of these, but they were £16 for a set of 3, which is actually a reasonable price for individual models, but didn't want to break the bank and buy 2 sets. Now I've seen them, I probably would like 2 sets, because that makes more of a warband to have 6 of these running around. And I also got some wolves from them too. And I like these wolves as a mini wolf pack. I think it had 4 models in the set. I've only just grabbed these out of a drawer, but they're just the right size as a wolf pack, rather than these giant monsters that you'd get from Games Workshop, which I actually like those models as well. But for this kind of, that kind of Napoleonic period, Gothic period type wolf pack, they're the right scaled size. I like those, so very nice. And then supporting the Old West type game, which I got that What a Cowboy from Too Fat Lardies. I picked up a various different Black Scorpion models, so these are there. Try and get those in focus. So I like this kind of like this gent here with a cool looking bowler hat on. And then I got from them too a whole load, just very quickly flash out here, but they have some really nice character models. So I got some female Old West from them as well, and some of them were in these sort of dresses with pistols and shotguns and rifles, and they're just rather nice models. Oh, actually, this is one of my favourite. I know it's not doing a huge amount, just sort of standing there, but with the pistol behind the back, that's a fantastic sculpt. I really like that styling to that. I will zoom in so you can see that closer, and then try and get into focus. Slight focus going on there. Nice. And this one here too, bring that one down. I mean, all the Black Scorpion stuff's great, and they've got so much Western. You could just literally go to town picking up just what you needed for that What a Cowboy game. Oh, and the last models just to show, Moonstone, which you've seen some of those were pictured on the video earlier. just a set here. One was like this kind of fey creature that was floating with like cloven hooves. Haven't put that one together. Obviously, haven't put any of these together. I'll clean them up. This was the sort of fairy in a tree which had the leaves or flower from the tree was her hair, and I thought that was a fantastic feature. I mean, and I'd use that. You could either use it in the Moonstone game, which I haven't played, and I have some other miniatures from because I backed their Kickstarter originally. Or this would work for any D&D setting where you wanted a fae coming out of a tree. Fantastic. And this model in this set particularly interested me as well. Klaus, that looks like a kind of a possible hobgoblin fae type creature. Cloven hooves. And he has a kind of a bell weapon thing on chain, which is great. They're very characterful. That movement and the hand and everything on there is great. So that's it, really. And that's all the stuff I got. Oh, actually, no, I did get, and I won't show you them close up, but I got the various 95th Riflemen for both for Sharps practice and for the Silver Bayonet game. And these were from Perry Miniatures. Really good sculpts again. Nice old school metal models. Quite a lot of tidy up required on flash and things on there, which I've been doing. So those guys are cleaned up. I got enough of these for a starter set of units to play in Sharps practice and to use them in Silver Bayonet. And some of these Sabo style bases that I can slot them in once they're based. Pick those up at the show. Skirmishing bases and more regular line or column bases that they do there too. These were just a few pounds for those MDF bases. So thanks for listening in. It was kind of a fun show, great haul I collected there. I was quite happy with everything I've got. Now I need to get on to prep them, although I've already started with the Napoleonics, so they've not gone straight in a drawer to be left for months. I have started to clean them up already, so looking forward to spending some time getting those done and painted. So thanks for listening, and see you around soon. Cheers.